back on Get Up, where so much football conversation is going to be about quarterbacks coming up. Either or, Swagoo, who's going to have a better career? Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa.
Tua Tagovailoa, I've seen him in big situations and deliver. I also have seen the ball come out of his hands, and it is as good as anybody I've ever seen throw a football.
So many questions about him staying healthy, but if he does, he's obviously got some magic. Dez, meanwhile, how about free agent options? Who'd you rather have, Ryan Tannehill or Teddy Bridgewater?
I'm going with Teddy B. I mean, he stepped in after Drew Brees got hurt a season ago and went 5-0. 5-0, that's pretty impressive. He's only 27 years old, has his future ahead. I think he's a good runner and thrower. I got to go with Teddy Bridgewater. I think his upside is huge.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater is a guy that, I mean, tanking for Teddy was a thing, and it wasn't all that long ago. He may be the most sought-after quarterback in actual free agency, except for perhaps this guy. As the NFL world awaits the decision on Tom Brady, his former teammate Rob Ninkovich made some very intriguing comments to the Boston Herald about what the future in New England could look like if Tom Brady doesn't return. Here's what Ninkovich said, quote, "It's going to be difficult to try and bring everybody back. I would think if Tom comes back, one of those other players comes back." He's referring to other Patriot free agents. But if Tom doesn't come back, I don't know if those guys are going to stick around, because what's the outlook for the team? Is it a rebuilding phase? What happens moving forward? That would be a hard sell. Marcus Spears, in your mind, if Tom Brady signs with Las Vegas or Tennessee or any of the other teams, are the Patriots a tear down and rebuild?
Absolutely. Unless they think Jarrett Stidham is going to turn into whatever, because right now he's the only guy that'll be on the roster that they've had a chance to evaluate. And bringing in a free agent is great, but he's not Tom Brady, and he's not going to respond that way. Here's the thing, too. You knew that if you throughout my tenure in the NFL and even beyond, you knew that if you signed with the Patriots and you were there at a minimum of 3 years, you were going to play in the Super Bowl. That's just how it went. So now you talk about the greatest quarterback of all time leaving. You talk about some of these skill position players, which they were devoid of anyway during this season. There's a lot to be fixed in New England, especially if the centerpiece of all the success decides to walk and go play somewhere else.
Swagoo, the question is, do you think you would play in the Super Bowl because of Belichick, or did you think you would play in the Super Bowl because of Brady? So I think most players, they were attracted to New England, not because they had the greatest coach ever, but because they had the greatest quarterback ever.
Dan.
And that's why they felt as though they were going to be able to play in the Super Bowl, like you said, if they were there for 3 years, at least 1 year. Now, without Tom Brady there, do you really believe in Belichick, or do you believe in the process? I don't think that a lot of players will believe in it, so it's not going to be an attractive destination for free agents if Tom Brady is no longer in New England.
Dan, here's the question I want to ask you. The Patriots, Bill Belichick is, if anything, meticulously prepared for everything. In the event that the Patriots do lose Tom Brady, what do you think his mindset is relative to how they get back?
I think he's a solver of the puzzle, and he always has a couple of routes to go. So I think he probably has a plan where he goes and gets a quarterback that he feels like he can plug in and contend right away. And he probably has a plan where it's what Rob Ninkovich and Marcus Spears and Desmond Howard are talking about, where it's a teardown and a rebuild. And I think that would be a fascinating thing to watch. Because when you talk to people, we talk about Bill Belichick as the greatest coach of all time, and his accomplishments speak for themselves. He's also probably the greatest general manager and salary cap guy of all time. And one of the ways he succeeds is he consistently gets, you talk to agents and players who've negotiated with him, consistently gets guys to take contracts that are favorable to the team by offering, if you come here, you can win the Super Bowl. And he's been right. If he can't offer that anymore, can he be the roster builder that he's been all along?
And the only thing I will say about Jarrett Stidham, not knowing anything about how good he might wind up being, and you've seen a lot more of him, obviously, in college than I have, is the notion that he winds up being a great quarterback is much less crazy than if I had told you 20 years ago a guy named Tom Brady, who was a 6th-round pick out of Michigan, who was still running the 40 from the combine 20 years later, is going to wind up being the greatest quarterback of all time. That would have been more far-fetched than this.
No question, G, and I understand what you're saying, but you've been drunk off success for a long time in New England. So Jarrett Stidham is not going to walk into a position that Tom Brady walked in.
Yes, no, they have been on that yak for a long time in New England.
Armagnac.
On the Armagnac, not even the most expensive one they can find. All right, where are we going next? Oh, to the NBA last night. Game of the night. Joel Embiid and the Sixers hosting the Nets. Philly playing without Ben Simmons and playing terribly early. They're down by 16 points in the second quarter. And listen to the home fans in Philly. They're getting booed like crazy in their own building, but then Timmy Legler, they start coming back, and it's all behind Joel Embiid. He played flat great in the second half.
He did, and this is what the Sixers fans express frustration about, because they know what he's capable of when he has this kind of determination and commitment. Look, nobody in the league that can guard him down there.
Look at the work inside there, and with that, he cut the game to 2. Again, they've been down by as many as 20. Fourth quarter, Sixers have the lead now, and look at Embiid stay with this play. Just watch him.
I love the first part when he passed up the 3. That, some nights he takes, and some nights he's committed to do this. Gets on the floor, gets back up, multiple efforts, all dedicated to getting to the paint, getting to the foul line, controlling the game. And this is what's so special about the guy. He shouldn't be able to do that at his size, Greeny.
And you'd like to see more of it. There's a little Euro step. He wants to show you the whole repertoire. Shooting threes not as valuable as that. Okay, 3 seconds to go. Ball game is tied. The Nets have an opportunity to win it, but they can't get it done. Embiid is fired up again. They overcome a 20-point deficit to send it to overtime. And in the OT, it's more from Embiid.
Yeah, and as great as he was offensively, what he did on the defensive end, he might be the only player in the league that can make 3 to 4 defensive plays that he made to help them win this game. That's what Joel Embiid brought to them last night.
He gets the play started. That's finished by Milton. Milton, excuse me. Embiid, 39 points, 16 rebounds, all smiles as the Sixers come from behind on a night they were getting blown out and booed to get the win. And here was Embiid's assessment of his own performance. Quote, just proving I'm here, I belong, and being the best player in the world. I just intend to keep coming out every single night and just play hard and trying to get wins and go out to try and win a championship. I felt like the first part of the season, I was trying to make sure everybody was comfortable, tried to take a step back. But if we were going to go somewhere, I've got to be one of the guys doing it. Why don't we see that from Joel Embiid all the time?
That's what the big question. That's the big mystery. And that's why, for me, this team is the biggest enigma in the NBA this year. I don't think I've ever said it about a team before. In 19 years of covering the NBA, I have never said that a team's floor is a first-round elimination and their ceiling is win an NBA championship. That is what I feel about the 76ers. And I said yesterday, if they started a series right now, I think they could get knocked out in the first round, even by a team like Miami. It doesn't have to be one of the juggernauts like Toronto, Milwaukee, or Boston. But you see them like this, and I say, well, if this were a consistent thing when you watch the Sixers, and this is what you expected, and this is what you got, the Philadelphia 76ers can win the Eastern Conference. The problem is there's no prolonged stretch where this is their formula. And now listen, last night was a little bit different because Ben Simmons wasn't there.
Right.
And they've got big spacing issues. I get that. And I think they can overcome them because of their overall talent. But it's obviously easier for Embiid if Simmons isn't there. It's one less guy that needs to score inside of 6
But here's what last night did. It reaffirms the position I continuously take on this show, and I feel like I'm sort of on an island on this. Yeah. That if those two guys are ultimately not suited to be together, the horse you ride is Embiid into the future, because the upside on him is genuinely, as he says, maybe as good a player as there is in the NBA.
No, he could do things no other player in the league could do. The problem is with Ben Simmons, you get it every single night. You get the same concerted effort in a guy that plays to his strengths, a guy that's an elite level defensive player, and a guy that you think can be durable for 82 games. Joel Embiid, he's got conditioning issues, he's had health issues, and more importantly to me, he doesn't commit to playing the way he did last night for long stretches. Let's see if he can keep this up.
Meantime, so that's one great player. We want to show you just some moments from another great young star last night, and this is Trae Young. He and the Hawks taking it to the Heat last night. I just want you to just marvel at the range and the different ways that Trae Young can knock down shots. Look where he's standing.
Yeah, it's just, it defies logic defensively to think that you need to close out that kind of space on a swing pass. And that's why you see 6-8 feet of space, because you can't believe this guy's about to catch and shoot it from there.
I mean, you were a great shooter, Legs, but this is something entirely different.
No,
right?
To be able to do that off the catch and shoot is one thing. Off the dribble, these guys get ahead of Steve, Steph Curry, Lillard, Trae Young. They've got range that nobody else can match. This one actually made me laugh a little bit. I felt bad for Andre Iguodala because he's been sitting home for about 6 months. His legs aren't under him. That looked like me after I've watched a movie for 2 hours at the theater and I stand up to leave and I wobble. I felt bad for Iguodala on that
Look where
play.
he's shooting from. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Trae Young would score 50 points last night and leading the Hawks to a nice win against a really good team in the Miami Heat. There's an and one. He's got a little shimmy shake for you. Again, 50 points last night for the dynamic young Trae Trae Young and exchanging jerseys with Quavo after the game. All good. Friday night doubleheader tonight starts in OKC. Jokic and the Nuggets, Chris Paul and the Thunder. That's 8 Eastern. Then you'll get Zion. The Pelicans are in Portland. Coverage starts with NBA Countdown, 7 Eastern on ESPN and the ESPN app. Coming up, Brady hasn't made a decision about where he wants to play, but did an Instagram post from another quarterback give us our best clue yet. You'll see it next.